had a good meeting also with the Department of Energy on a number of things that are very important to us. I was also back because I had a meeting with the Electricity Subsector Coordinating Committee. Dan was there as well. He had a number of other meetings, and then we convened at the ESCC, and Dan was able to join and meet our lobbying team for a dinner one night. But the ESCC had an opportunity to talk about the wildfires and some of the issues. A couple of things that I'm just going to highlight. I'm not going to go into the detail, but the administration in that meeting made it clear they are looking to decentralize FEMA going forward, and that impacts all of you. FEMA has been kind of that backstop when there's emergencies, natural disaster emergencies, and the ability to get some recovery of cost associated with those. They really, sounds like they're working hard to downsize that organization and move much of the function and the role to states to handle instead of the federal government. That's a big shift. That's one that has to be watched closely, and hopefully APPA will help lead an effort to ensure that it's done in a way that minimizes the impact for the critical objectives of FEMA. There was also two other topics that came up, and I wasn't part of a confidential session that went on, but there was some concerns expressed as to the number of cybersecurity attempts at attacking really utilities and governmental agencies, but a recent discovery of a group out of China utilizing Anthropic and training Anthropic as AI to go make the attacks and kind of remove some of the human elements, but pursuing, trying to get access into a number of systems. And it just sits there and stands by waiting for an opportunity and dives in when it sees one on its own. So I guess there's been some changes to the Anthropic system as a result a little bit, but again, just highlights that AI has a lot of opportunity for us, but it comes with a lot of additional risk and things that we all have to think about how we're going to integrate that. The other is there was some discussion on drones and needing a more enhanced drone policy for the federal government as folks have learned more and more about the capability of the drones and what's going on in the Ukrainian war, how Russia has used those to attack electrical facilities, and how in turn Ukraine has now used it to attack electrical facilities and oil and gas in Russia, that the threat to our electric utilities with drone capabilities, we have to revisit that. We can't just get by with really tall brick walls and barbed wire and some cameras. The drones are an actual threat to our physical assets, and we have to come up with some new approaches. And so I think there is several working groups associated with that going forward that have to be handled. More closer to home, the Pathways group has been meeting as we're trying to finalize a lot of the business elements, the bylaws for the new regional organization for the transmission. And we have most of the documents complete. We're doing final review. We're going to take a vote on those. I think it's the 17th of December. And with the goal of moving forward, the launch committee is still trying to raise funds. We've determined we need about $7 million to stand up the regional organization. And just looking at various scenarios, it could include contributions from folks, utilities, and not-for-profits, but also potentially borrowing the funds from a banking entity and have those funds repaid once the market is established. So looking at both those elements, and a decision will be made shortly on how to move forward. And lastly, I sit on the nominating committee for the CalISO governing body, and we held a meeting. We have two of the existing board members that both have asked to be extended. And so we have some concerns about that. The nominating committee, at least one of those individuals has been on the governing board for a long, long time. And the thought was maybe it's time to refresh while we're transitioning to this regional organization. And so the committee's working through that process, but just wanted to let folks know that's ongoing. The governor would like our recommendations by the first week of February, so we'll see if we can get through that pretty soon. With that, I'll stop and see if there's any questions anyone might have. No questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Item 4, Executive Committee report. So the Executive Committee met this morning. A quorum was established for most of the meeting. We received reports from the General Manager and General Counsel. We discussed and approved item 20 on the Commission agenda, and item 28 and 29 on the Commission agenda. A consensus was formed, and without a quorum, it's going to be brought to the Commission for approval. Our next Executive Committee meeting will be at our Strategic Issues Conference on January 22nd in Sacramento. Yeah, I got it right here. That's a different one. And so I wanted to give an update on the progress with Korn Ferry. So we've finalized and executed the agreement with Korn Ferry as the executive recruitment firm. Korn Ferry has officially begun the outreach and engagement process. Intake interviews with the executive committee have been completed and are in the process of being scheduled, which they're done. The next steps, November 24th to 26th, they continue stakeholder outreach. December 1 through 5, review and finalize position profiles and begin candidate sourcing. December 8th through February 9th, Korn Ferry will actively source and assess candidates. Regular progress updates will be provided to the executive committee and full commission. And as my commitment to y'all is to keep you all informed. And then the report out from closed session today was direction was given to the labor negotiators. And with that, are there any questions concerning the executive committee report? All righty, thank you. And item 4 or 5, facilities.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Facilities Committee did meet on November 5th to consider a few items that are listed on your agenda today for your further consideration. The Facilities Committee did establish a quorum, and so they provided a formal recommendation for approval of items number 15, 17, and 18 that are listed on the consent portion of your agenda, and also provide a recommendation of approval for items number 21 and 22 that are listed on the discussion portion of your agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding that. Otherwise, that concludes my report.
Any questions for Tony? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee held a meeting on November 18th, during which PFM, our financial advisor, provided the members with an update on the status of the financial markets. NCPA staff also shared the actuarial results of our other post-employment benefits, commonly referred to as OPEB, as well as the agency's PERS pension plan. Our OPEB plan reflected a funding status of 102%, in which the committee confirmed for NCPA to continue budgeting the normal cost of this plan. The PERS pension plan continues to show increases in the required funding level, reflecting a funding status of over 69% compared to 54% back in 2016 before we started. This group confirmed the 15-year amortization plan. By a majority vote, the committee confirmed for NCPA to stay on the 15-year amortization plan for budgeting of the unfunded accrued liability. Lastly, the committee discussed item 14, the delegation of investment duties on the consent calendar. And if I can share this, I rarely do this, but I really felt that this was important to share with you because NCPA is holding approximately $400 million of yours that we have invested into the market. And I just wanted to spend a minute to share a little bit of this, of our investment portfolio. As being stewards of public funds, the first thing you have is your investment policy, which complies to the government code, the 53601. We took that policy and took it to the California Municipal Treasurers Association a couple years ago and had it certified as a policy that is best practice. So once you have that, I call that your rule book. And then once you have your rule book, then agencies can decide what is the strategy to deploy those investments into the market. The strongest thing that, or an objective that you have to do is safety, which is the preservation of principal, liquidity. This is making sure you have enough funds, cash, to meet expenditures, as well as a yield or the return of the investment. So one of the things you have to do at this point is decide, first off, even though safety is our number one thing, we have to figure out how much liquidity does this agency need to have. We are much different than a city, where the city, mainly on the general fund side, is dependent on property taxes that come in twice a year. NCPA is very unique that we send out these bills on a monthly basis, so it's almost like a revolving door of payments, receipts, payments, receipts. So we are much different than a city. But that said, the first thing you have to decide is, well, how much cash do I have to have in order to meet monthly obligations? And you have to ask yourself, how do I do it? So one of the options you can do is you can look at your budget. And so for us, it was $564 million, and you can divide it by 12 and say, well, based on this, I need $47 million on average per month. And it's like, okay, but we know that being that we're in a commodity market, things shift up and down, we true up costs on a monthly basis, that's probably not the best way to do it. So the next thing we look at, and I've showed this before, these costs, the CalISO costs, the energy costs, the fuel, and you look down here with the PG&E, these can have major swings. This happens to be, $77 million we budget, only $28 million expensed for the year. That would mean that we're holding on to your money longer than is needed. The reverse can happen, to where if we only budget 77, but we run the plant or fuel's higher, and that's $128 million, we're not going to have that kind of money sitting there in order to make those payments. We have to factor that into the equation. So one of the steps we do is we look at what has been our monthly cash flow. If you look back over a 2-year period, that's falling within the range that I had set on the initial slide, between 40 and 60 million. But we don't do that. We go back 3 years because we want to make sure that we're covering everything. And look at that. When you go back 3 years, and this was the anomaly of the market, we had almost $120 million go out in 1 month. And it's like, holy smokes, and this is why we prep the portfolio to where we can absorb shocks and hits like this and not have to sell an investment at a loss, because that's career suicide if you have to do that. So this is how it's structured. So this is what we go into setting the objective. So the first thing we need to look at, and this is using the September portfolio, it's in the treasurer's report that is in your monthly packets. So if you look to the left, this is the cash we're holding, 0 to 7 days in length, 120 million, perfect. That's covering, in our opinion, sufficient liquidity to meet operations, even if we have volatility in the market. And then you'll notice we're long about 180 million out to that 1 to 5 years. This is the typical barbell that they call it from an investment strategy. And then you have some amounts scattered in the middle. And as these investments on the 1 to 5 years start to roll down the curve, this is when our treasurer will then evaluate how is our liquidity. Do we need to hold those to maturity, or can we potentially reinvest them back out to that yield curve, picking up some additional yield? And that's a strategy and a discipline that Sandra does on a daily basis. She is so committed to this portfolio. She does an outstanding job with it. And then you'll notice we have investments out to 6 to 10 years. And most investment portfolios limit you, especially the government code, to a 5-year maturity unless the board authorizes it further. These are the decommissioning reserve funds that we're not going to be using for decades. And so we went a little bit beyond that 5-year curve to pick up some additional yield, but we just have some small dollars sitting out there. The next thing we look at is the diversification of the portfolio. And if you notice here, we have a wide range of investments from treasuries to CDs, the government agencies. These are the federal home loan bonds, Fannie Mae, et cetera. You'll notice some corporate notes that are there. And then muni bonds, money market. LAIF is money market. That's the local agency investment fund. This is dollar in, dollar out, state-run fund, as well as CAMP. CAMP is a California asset money market program. This is where all of our liquidity is sitting at this time, picking up some additional yield. And so from a diversification, the portfolio looks fantastic. Sandra's done a great job diversifying it and staying within the maximum concentrations. And then the one area which you could deem to be, if you call it risk, even though it's allowed by code, the corporate bonds were sitting at about 29%. And when you look at that next, she has this I feel sorry for the staff that has to book these investments, but she has these corporate bonds no greater than 2.75% of the portfolio in any one. Our limit is 5. She's half that, and really less than that in the majority of the corporate notes. All of these are highly rated, A or higher. And so she has this just so diversified and not concentrated in any sort of way that's going to provide any sort of risk to the portfolio. And so I wanted to share that with a little bit of and then the last thing is, from a sector standpoint, she has this really broken out between the financial, technology, industrials, healthcare, consumer, communication, basic materials. I mean, it's just so well laid out that she's doing a great job. And I wanted to share that because once a year we bring this item before you to delegate those duties to her. And sometimes I question saying, well, how do they know that she's doing a good job? Because you're sort of taking it for face value, being on consent. I just wanted to share this, that in my opinion, she's doing a phenomenal job. And with that, this item was recommended for the commission to be approved. That's item number 14 on the consent calendar. So our next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for February 10th, and that concludes my report. And see if you guys have any questions.
Any questions for Monty? Hearing none, and be sure and thank Sandra.
Absolutely.
Okay, legal?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a mic here. So the legal committee met on November 6th, and we discussed a few of the items that we'll be discussing in closed session today. And we also discussed, kind of a nuance of the energy efficiency programs, and that is that some of them do require prevailing wage, and some do not. So just trying to really cut those definitions very carefully. This becomes a contracting issue when we're using the support services program. This issue really came up through Emily LeMay and the work that she does on the customer program side to really identify, how to deal with these differences. So if you're working on, we're going to have further discussions about this, but in single-family residential, you may be able to, under certain programs, not have to comply with Department of Industrial Relations registration and prevailing wage. But if you're working on commercial, you may have to do that. So we're really trying to work through as the attorneys and with an ad hoc committee, how we can structure agreements that allow for those differences. Because sometimes if you're working on an energy efficiency project and you have to pay prevailing wage, it may be too expensive. So that by the time you pay for the upgrade, it doesn't, your energy efficiency payback isn't sufficient to pay for it. And so then that doesn't encourage people to take those actions. So we're having further discussion on that, and we covered that in the legal committee, and we'll be continuing to do that in future legal committee meetings. Our next meeting is in January. I believe we're close to the 15th due to the schedule with the holiday. Does anybody have questions about the legal committee?
Do you guys ever discuss 1099s and when they're required?
I'm trying to think. I think a 1099 is a tax form. I'm looking at
Yeah.
Monty.
That's correct.
That is done. We have not covered that in the legal committee. I actually lean on Sandra and our finance group to help me know when we need those. But we can, if
My
that's
understanding,
something.
those have to be provided by January 31st.
And
And
there's
we-
a dollar.
Yeah,
Threshold,
those are related to when you're giving an incentive to a customer.
Yep.
Some programs that exceed a threshold that you have to issue a 1099 as a benefit to the customer that they would have to file on their taxes. I don't know what the threshold is now, but that would be probably not the legal committee, but it would probably be our customer programs committee under Emily to talk about that a little bit more.
Thank you.
But I know many of you have to do that. NCPA doesn't because we don't issue, efficiency funds directly to the consumer.
Thank you.
Thanks to those who know more about that than I did.
Any other questions for Jane? If not, item 8, L&R, Suds, you're filling in for Dave?
Hey, thank you very much, Chair. The NCPA L&R Committee met yesterday for its annual strategic planning meeting. We discussed accomplishments from the past year and our major initiatives for 2026. Thank you to all who joined us for this discussion, which lays the groundwork for our engagement at the state and federal levels in the coming year. The next meeting of the L&R Committee will be held February 18th in Roseville. This meeting is our annual budget workshop, where we will develop our fiscal year 27 budget to align with and support our strategic goals. We're looking forward to 2 important policy and committee events in January, where hopefully you can plan to join us. Our first annual strategic issues conference will be held January 20th to 22nd at the Clinton Sawyer Hotel in Sacramento. We've confirmed several distinguished speakers for this conference event, including Assembly Member Bruce Rogers,
No questions for Suds? Thank you, Suds. Okay, item 9, member announcements and meeting reports from anybody?
I have one. I just found out just a little while ago, and this is from Dan. Dan just got appointed to the National Petroleum Council. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit about this. So I thought that was so exciting.
I don't know a lot about it, but if you Google it, there's
see if it's
there's an
good.
article in Politica and also Utility Dive. But apparently they're an advisory committee. They're not a lobby thing. It's all about just advisory with the Secretary of Energy in the White House. There's about 200 members, very varied from petroleum people to NGOs and everybody. I didn't see a lot of public power on there, so I don't know how it was a weird letter because I didn't put in for it. I don't know if anybody put it in for me, but it basically said starting January you're on it, and it'd be great if you could come to this other meeting. Anyway, so it was just like you're voluntold, I guess. So, yeah. So anyway, it'll be interesting, but it has to do with not just petroleum, natural gas and electricity tie over and all that. So should be good.
Yeah, and I'll just say Dan was told to be at this meeting last week or earlier this week, and he failed to show up even though he was next door.
Yeah, in my
And
defense,
yeah, he said he didn't know about it.
when
But
when I was landing in SAC, I get a text from my assistant with the picture of the letter that was sent November 12th, but that got to the wrong address, and so I never got it until late. And it was ironically, I was having drinks with the cyber person with the Nuclear Energy Institute in DC, and another guy, and so we were literally next door to where the reception was, and so anyway, missed opportunity, but
There'll be more.
there'll be more.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Well, congratulations. Yeah. Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be approved without discussion by a single roll call vote. Any commissioner or member of the public may remove any item from the consent calendar. If an item is removed, it will be discussed separately following the approval of the remainder of the consent calendar. Prior to a roll call vote to approve the consent calendar, the commissioners will be polled to determine if any member wishes to abstain from one or more items on the consent calendar. Does anybody wish to pull any items from the consent calendar?
I need to ask them. Okay, so does anybody want to remove any items from the consent calendar? I'll start with Alameda.
No.
Okay. Bart?
No.
Biggs?
No.
Gridley?
No.
Healdsburg?
No.
Lodi is absent. Lompoc?
No.
Palo Alto?
No.
Port of Oakland?
No.
Reading?
No.
Roseville?
I don't want to pull any. I will be abstaining from one of
Okay. Which one do you want to abstain from?
them. 16.
16, okay. Santa Clara?
Nope.
Shasta Lake?
None.
Truckee Downer? Okay. And Ukiah is absent. And Plumas?
No.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any abstentions? That you didn't tell me about? Sorry.
Palo Alto also abstains from 16.
16, okay.
Reading will abstain on 15 and 16.
Okay, sorry about that. 15 and 16. Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
Rosal makes a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Do I have a second?
Reading will second.
Okay, motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Okay, taking a roll call vote. Alameda?
Yes.
Bart?
Yes.
Biggs?
Yes.
Gridley?
Yes.
Healdsburg?
Yes.
Lompoc?
Yes.
Palo Alto?
Yes.
Port of Oakland?
Yes.
Reading,
Yes.
Roseville,
Yes.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Shasta Lake,
Yes.
Truckee Donner. Ukiah is absent, and Plumas.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Discussion, action items, item 20, the 2026 NCPA committee meeting calendar. Randy?
Good morning. We brought this to you all last month and then realized we needed to make a change. James had a scheduled vacation that conflicted with our proposed May meeting up in the city of Shasta Lake, commission meeting. So we have moved that to April to work with the city of Shasta Lake. And so that was the primary change on the committee calendar for next year. We do understand that it's very, very hard. You all have busy schedules and other potential activities that go on. These are dates that we've tried to work around a number of other organizations and work with our cities. So we know it's not going to work for all of you all the time, but hopefully it works most of the time. And we would seek your approval today to approve next year's meeting calendar.
Any questions for Randy? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Alameda.
Okay, motion and second. Roll call, please.
Okay, Alameda,
Yes.
Bart,
Yes.
Biggs,
Yes.
Ridley,
Yes.
Healdsburg.
Yes.
Okay, Lodi is absent. Lompoc,
Yes.
Palo Alto,
Yes.
Port of Oakland,
Yes.
Reading,
Yes.
Roseville,
Yes.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Shasta Lake,
Yes.
Truckee Donner. Ukiah is absent. And Plumas.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 21, Resolution 25-138. Michael?
Good morning. So we'll start off. We got a lot of fun things today. We'll start off talking about the effluent pipeline that brings water up to the geysers. So first page, we'll just show you a quick map of what the project is. In the upper right quadrant, you'll find the Northwest Treatment Plant where Lake Sand treats their sewage and turns it into wastewater we could use. The red pipeline runs along the lake. Along the way, it stops by the lake intake pumps where it picks up fresh water and then continues on down to the southeast treatment plant. And then from the southeast treatment plant, it gets pumped up the hill over to us and Calpine for re-injection into the earth for water supply to make steam for our operations. Next slide, please. In this package today, we've got 3 agreements that we'll be looking for approval on. 2 of them are one of them is an amend and restate, one's an amendment, and the other one is a new agreement. We'll talk about each of those. Next slide. First one that's an amend and restate is between Calpine and NCPA. This is our joint operating agreement. It lays out the terms for how the operations and maintenance and cost sharing of the steam supplier section of piping is going to be maintained, and that NCPA is currently responsible for the O&M of the piping and the pump stations. It defines the cost sharing at 50% each for each party on the fixed cost, and then electrical costs are split based on how water is delivered. Next slide. This is just a picture of one of the pump stations that we operate. This is the Bear Canyon #1 pump station, and that's what helps bring the water up the hill. Next slide. So on this, on the new pieces of this agreement here, it's got an expiration date of September 17th, 2053. It incorporates terms related to the new Yolo County Flood and Control and Water Conservation District contract, and we'll get into what that contract is in a minute. It also adjusts the price that Calpine is paying. Our original formula had a fixed rate at $7.50 per megawatt hour to compensate for the renewable energy credits. That has gone from a fixed price to a floating price, and it sets the terms as to how we figure out what the market price is for that. So it gives a small benefit to NCPA going into a market price because the market price is currently greater than what that fixed price was. Next slide. So then we also did some cleanup. There's this concept. It's called the C-bill. The terms of that ran out per the agreement as it was previously. So we just removed that section from there. It was no longer had any function. And then we've did some administrative cleanup for how we manage the invoicing processes. Next slide. So overall, there's nothing in this particular contract that's particularly new cost. But because of the way we changed the way we're calculating the RECs, there is a slight benefit to NCPA. So we are, based on current dollars, we're expecting our cost to decrease about $27,000. That'll be picked up by Calpine. Next slide. So this is the joint operating agreement. So this is the one between Calpine, Lake Osan, and NCPA. And it, again, outlines the cost sharing of the CGEP project, but now it's covering Lake Osan's portion of it and how the steam suppliers that compensate Lake Osan for the maintenance on that piping system that they maintain. Next slide, I've got a couple pictures here of their systems. So here is the southeast pump station that pumps the water, starts the pumping water up to our side. And the next slide shows their reservoirs that they have where they store their water. And so the next slide, so this particular contract then has an expiration date of 2051. It includes the northwest wastewater treatment facility, pipeline to the southeast treatment facility as well. That's a new section in there. It updates the agreement. Originally, the agreement did have a Yolo County contract in it. It was strictly between Yolo County and Lake Osan. And because of this new agreement that's been added, the references have been updated and make harmonious with that new agreement. And we've done minor things over the years. Cost of equipment has increased. There's been inflation. Originally, we had a $5,000 threshold limit where they'd have to seek authority to do maintenance. $5,000 doesn't really buy you a lot of stuff, so it starts really bogging down work. We proposed to change that to $25,000 so they can actually get some minor work done without having to slow down to ask for permission each time. Next slide. And so we're going to ultimately at this point pick up the all the operations and maintenance costs for the fresh water taken out of Clear Lake. There is no benefit to Lake Osan for that. They don't use it. It really is a reasonable ask when they came and said, hey, you guys need to pay for all that. We're getting nothing for it. There's some additional cost sharing to Lake Osan and a fixed $100,000 a year with an escalator of 3%. It offsets Lake Osan for various other capital improvements. And we also made adjustments to emergency repair work limitations as far as when they need to make emergency repairs, and that's also up to the $25,000. So based on the next slide, based on the additional costs associated with this agreement, we expect that to be on the NCPA side of things to be about a $79,000 increase in operations costs. And that includes the $100,000 a year. And the next slide, finally, the new agreement. So ultimately what we were doing for the last 25 years or so is we were getting lake water from Yolo County's supply at no cost. They were giving it to us for free. They decided that giving us their supply for free wasn't really in their economic interest, and they wanted to sell it to us. Again, as a reasonable ask. They based their rates based on their rates within their district. And so we've got this new agreement now where it's going to be a new cost to us to purchase water. We'd already planned for that in the budget, so we're covered there. And so it will have an effective date of May 1. That's an important piece. So we've been working to try and get this done. So it's going to be a little bit backdated. So our water calculations will start based on May 1 of this year, so a few months back. Got a 25-year term, but there are some options in there for renegotiating terms and conditions at years 15 and years 20 to an expiration date of May 2050. There's some interesting little nuances that we put into this one, whereas before we had a hard cap and we had at the top and we had a hard cutoff if the Rumsey gauge wasn't met. We've now got some new optionality in there where if the water year is a pretty good year, we could ask for additional water above the cap and pay for that at an additional cost. Or even if there's a drought year and they have water available to us, even though the Rumsey gauge didn't meet it, there's an option to be able to purchase at a higher cost water during those drought years. Those are all very dependent on coordination with each other, but at least we now have options to do that. The next slide just shows some of the variable rates. So depending on the acre feet that we're taking, there's a variable cost to it. So the initial 4,500 acre feet starts at $90 an acre feet. Then from 4,500 to 6,000, it's $95, and it moves up through there. Again, it's nice because we do now have options during drought years to continue to supplement. Next slide. So we've got an annual payment that they want, a fixed annual cost, $100,000. It again also is adjusted 3% each year. However, we are not liable for the payment during drought years or when they suspend deliveries due to a force majeure event. Drought years are declared when the lake water is below 3.5 feet on May 1 of each year. Our first annual payment of the $100,000 is for year 2025, and it's due within 30 days of execution of this agreement. So that's the backdating piece there coming in as well. So we do have, during non-drought years, we do now have a minimum take. They wanted to really be able to count on their budget. So the take from Calpine and NCPA is 2,500 acre feet. And if we don't take it, we still pay for it anyway. The take can be reduced by to 1,250 feet or 50% if either NCPA or Calpine has a force majeure event for 90 days or if they're in bankruptcy or receivership. So that we don't have to be responsible for Calpine's share because we just couldn't take that much all by ourselves. And again, just a little touch on the drought years. The price for drought water at drought years is a premium at $125 per acre feet, but it does give us optionality. We're not obligated to take it if we didn't want it during a drought year, but it's nice to have the option. There is a minimum, though. If the Rumsey gauge does drop below 3.22 feet, then we're just cut off. It's a hard cutoff. So it's nice to have some options in there for this. All right, and then so during the non-drought years, we must declare our intent to take excess water by September 30th, and then we'll be obligated to a minimum take or pay volume of 500 acre feet at a cost of $150 per acre feet. And in addition, we will have a new water diversion meter that we'll be installing that meets state requirements so they could get real-time monitoring and meet their obligations for reporting our fresh water extraction. Next slide. So if we look at the costs, these are just show what our potential costs are under the YOLO agreement, depending on what type of years it might be and how much water we're taking. It's anywhere between $186,000 to $310,000 for the water. If you consider the value you get out of that in the steam, it's a pretty low cost, but it's typical water rates that they have within their district. Next slide. So overall, the whole CGAP system under these new contracts, including the stuff that's already part of our budgets and plans and normal costs, we expect to range between $1.6 million to $1.9 million a year. The environmental analysis, take a look at this. There's no direct change in the physical environment. It's not a project for purposes of CEQA. We just have the ongoing maintenance. It's already been contemplated under CEQA activities and is exempt under the different codes identified here. And so for a recommendation, we're looking for an approval of Resolution 25-138 for the collective Southeast Geysers Effluent Pipeline agreements consisting of the 2025 amended and restated Steam Suppliers Joint Operating Agreement, Southeast Geysers Effluent Pipeline Project, the Steam Suppliers JOA. And the second agreement, the Joint Operating Agreement, Southeast Geysers Effluent Pipeline Project Amendment Number 4 with that's the Lake Osan JOA, And 3, the new 2025 Clear Lake Water Supply Agreement, and authorizing the general manager as designated to execute said agreements with any non-substantial changes as recommended and approved by the NCPA General Counsel. And these agreements have been through the boards of Lake, San Agnolo and approved there already. Any questions on these?
Mike, aren't we the last party?
We are the last party, yep.
Any questions for Mike? Suds?
Yeah, this is Suds. Here in the Bay Area, recycled water is about half the cost of fresh water, potable water. Is there a strategy? I know the fresh water has less TDS, so it's probably better for the injecting. Is there a strategy for how we're going to use recycled versus fresh?
Yeah, we take all the recycled water we could get, but now that we've got a new limit on the fresh water, we're going to ensure we're targeting to make sure we take those minimum takes there. So it's just going to be a balance of hitting the minimum plus all the recycled water needed. Generally, what happens when you get into the rainy season, the Lake Osan, they start really sweating because they start running out of storage room. So they'll be pounding on us to take everything we could possibly shove down there to drain their ponds so they don't spill over.
Any other questions for Michael? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 25-138.
Santa Clara moves approval.
Roseau seconds.
Okay, motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Okay, we'll call vote on this item. Alameda,
Yes.
Bart,
Yes.
Biggs,
Yes.
Ridley,
Yes.
Healdsburg,
Yes.
Lodi is absent. Lompoc,
Yes.
Palo Alto,
Abstain.
Port of Oakland,
Yes.
Reading,
Abstain.
Roseville,
Yes.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Shasta Lake,
Abstain.
Truckee Donner,
Abstain.
Ukiah is absent, and Plumas.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Resolution, item 22, Resolution 25-139. Michael?
Okay, so we had previously talked to you about what our plans were, kind of a strategy for the relicensing of 11197. This is the transmission line permit that goes from Collierville and Spicer Meadows. So let's take a look at what we got in here. So we talked previously with Facilities and Commission on it to lay out what our plan and strategy was. Next slide. So again, the 111-197 is for the generator tie lines. There are two other licenses associated with this project. One is for the upper project and one is CCWD's 2409 for the powerhouses. The license needs to be renewed. You need to start the process at least 5 years before the license expires. The expiration is in 2032. We've already started this work under a small amount. We've bid and awarded the first phase, which is preparation of the notice of intent letter, the pre-application document. And so next slide kind of shows the schedule on this. And in the phase 1, the yellow is what we've been working on this year, and that work is nearly complete. Approval of this will move us into these next phases. So phase 2 in 2026, we would be selecting our relicensing methodology, which we're recommending here is the integrated licensing strategy, just because we think that it will lock down any of these ongoing study requests. It does make it much more difficult for people to bring in and request studies on an ongoing basis where you just never seem to end. And we will then be submitting that PAD and NOI and then start working out the rest of the coordination. As we roll into the 2027, we'll be developing our outreach and study plans. Going into 28, we expect approval of the study plan and then begin year 1 studies. And then in 2029, we're expecting to wrap up with year 2 studies and the final submittal of the application. And so next slide, a lot of these on this next slide cover what we just talked about in the schedule, but some of the studies that we're thinking about there in the lower left corner include the like bald eagle aerial nest study or vernal pool mapping. And so there's a number of these different different birds that we'll be concerned with the transmission line that we'll be studying. Next slide. So the cost of the project, the $152,000 we're already working on, but we're rolling it into here so we have the total cost of this project to be approved. With the relicensing coordination, it's $300,000. We got first-year studies and second-year studies. We do have some contingencies already put into this, so but we're looking at $752,000 is what we need approved to move on this job. Next slide. So we had anticipated higher costs on it. We did collect $1.3 million through our capital development reserves between 2025 and 2026. So the money is funded for this already. We'll probably just hang on to the balance of that for now until we get a better understanding if any cost will be outside of the contingencies we've anticipated. Next slide. So this is the environmental process. So entering into this contract and doing work doesn't need any action. But this will be a FERC process, and we're going to have a parallel sequel process on this. And at the conclusion of those, you will have a FERC license that you will ultimately need to take action on to cover. So that is where we are going on the environmental process. Next slide. And it's just a continuation of that thought. And finally, we're looking for an approval of Resolution 25-139, authorizing the FERC project number 11197 Collierville and Spicer Meadow Transmission Line Relicensing Project, utilizing the integrated licensing process and delegating authority to the general managers designee to award bids, execute agreements, and to issue purchase orders for the project in accordance with NCPA purchasing policies and procedures without further approval by the Commission for a total cost not to exceed $752,000 and authorizing $752,000 from the Capital Development Reserve, with these funds to be incorporated into the hydroelectric budgets from fiscal year 26 to 29. Any questions?
Any questions for Michael? No hands up. Hearing no questions, I will enter. Oh, any public comment? Hearing none. I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve Resolution 25-139.
Rosal approves. Makes the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Okay, roll call vote. Alameda,
Yes.
Bart,
Yes. Yes.
Biggs,
Yes.
Gridley,
Yes.
Healdsburg,
Yes.
Lodi is absent. Lompoc,
Yes.
Palo Alto,
Yes.
Port of Oakland,
Yes.
Reading,
Abstain.
Roseville,
Yes.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Shasta Lake,
Abstain.
Truckee Donner,
Abstain.
and Ukiah is absent. And Plumas?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 23, Resolution 25-120. Michael?
Yeah, this one's an annoying project. It's one of those things, all things electronics, right? Electronics have such a short lifespan. I remember the day when you had a T1 circuit. I mean, you really had some internet connection. That was pretty awesome. But this is related to the T1 connection from LEC over to CalISO to operate the rig. And as with all things electronics, what generally starts happening is they use all these different integrated circuits that they plug onto these boards to operate the equipment, and then the manufacturer stops making the chips that goes in, which means you lose the boards and ultimately you lose spare parts. And ultimately what AT&T has come out and said is we're no longer able to sustain operation of T1 circuits. We don't have parts for it anymore. We got a letter from CalISO saying you need to get off the T1 circuit. We're changing everything over. And so we said, sure, we can do that. We contacted AT&T to go to the next thing for the ECN network, and that was a fiber network. And unfortunately, fiber is not at our fence line, so there's a large expense to get fiber brought to the facility. So we did anticipate this, and we've got a budget of $1.25 million for this fiber connection. On the next slide for the environmental analysis, it's a two-part environmental analysis. There's a little bit of work. You could go one more slide down. So you could go ahead and there's a part that's within the fence line that NCPA has to work on for equipment at our end of the site, and that is what are we saying here? It's a minor modification, and so it's within the license that we already have. It is considered regular routine maintenance at the facility. There's a second part of it, which is AT&T's work. AT&T is responsible to the California Public Utilities Commission for their aspects of the CEQA analysis, and they will be following that through the PUC. And so they are responsible for complying with those requirements on this project. With that, we'll have a recommendation to approve Resolution 25-120, authorizing the LEC AT&T Circuit Migration Project and delegating authority to the NCPA General Manager as designee to award bids, execute agreements, and to issue purchase orders for this work in accordance with NCPA purchasing policies and procedures without further approval by the Commission for a total project cost not to exceed $1,250,000 to be funded from the approved fiscal year proposed capital projects. And on the final note, one of the problems we have out there is the thieves coming to cut all the copper wires. It'll be nice to be on fiber out there, so we'll probably improve our reliability quite a bit once they cut through the fiber and realize it's worthless the first time. Any questions on this project?
Any hands up, Carrie? No questions for Michael? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 25-120.
Santa Clara moves approval.
Do I have a second? Biggs will go ahead and second. Roll call, please.
Okay, roll call. Alameda,
Abstain.
Bart,
Yes.
Biggs,
Yes.
Ridley,
Yes.
Healdsburg,
Yes.
Lodi is absent. Lompoc,
Yes.
Palo Alto,
Abstain.
Port of Oakland,
Yes.
Reading,
Abstain.
Roseville,
Yes.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Shasta Lake,
Yes.
Truckee Donner. No, he's absent. Ukiah is absent. And Plumas.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 24, Resolution 25-135. Monty?
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this item is being pulled from action. There will be no action requested today, but rather informational. I want to introduce this item and provide some background. Many of you saw this yesterday, so this will be just an informational item. Not often do potential munis approach NCPA looking for membership. The last time this occurred, I think, was back in 2015 when Shasta Lake approached NCPA looking for membership. They were eventually admitted in 2016, so it's been almost a decade since we've had a formal application submitted to our agency. So like I had mentioned, the Lassen Municipal Utility District, commonly referred to as LMUD, did submit to us an official membership application as well as a $10,000 fee. The services that they're requesting are just the legislative and regulatory L&R services. Really, their focus is on regulatory compliance. They're very much interested in the wildfire issues that many of us are experiencing today when it comes either whether it's mitigation or the legal sort of inverse condemnation that occurs. They are also very interested in our efforts on the CVPIA completion. In further discussions with the board, telling them about the customer programs that Emily's group has out there, they certainly have an interest in that as well. This energy efficiency, the electrification, as well as key accounts, just to name a few. And so it's just L&R that they're looking for today. Nothing at this time for power management or looking to join any one of our projects. We've had some extensive discussions with our utility directors on those dates there. lot of questions, a lot of what's going to framed in the presentation that you'll see today. And then following that November meeting, we felt like there was enough at least to bring to the L&R committee, which was done yesterday. And then at that meeting, it was agreed upon to have it as an introduction to the commission rather than have it as an action item at this time. And I'll explain why when I get to the end. So for those who, where Elmud is located in the northeastern sort of side here of California, Pluma Sierra, our member to the south, Surprise Valley to the north of them. So they're really up there in this, what I'll consider it's District 1. You'll see who currently today is the representatives from that area, Doug Lamoffa, Megan Dolly, and Heather Hadwick. Their board members are listed here. I don't know any of them specifically, but in discussions with the GM, if Lassen is accepted for membership, the GM, Nick Dominguez, would be the one representing Elmud at the commission meetings, is what I was told. When I started looking taking a deeper dive into Elmud, their vision, mission, priorities, and goals are very similar to what all of you, and including NCPA, has today. Supporting the community, providing safe, reliable, and sustainable service. On the mission, I highlighted some of these items which we all talk about almost daily: reliable service, reasonable cost, safety, the community, having a skilled and valued workforce. And then on the priorities, we talk about these, monthly, from grid resiliency, power supply, as well as our external relations. Diving into their utility statistics, they have about 11,000 customers. About 86% of them is residential. So it's really heavily weighted on residential, mostly tribes. When you look at our membership, they're going to fall right in between Truckee, Donner, and Plumas, which is where I would expected them to be based on their location. Retail sales, 123 gigawatt hours, peak demand of almost 30. Smaller utility, employee count of 33, broken up, between management as well as maintenance and ops, and their union is IBEW. Looking at their org chart, it's structured very similar to all of us, where you have your customer or your ratepayer at the top, followed by your board of directors, your general manager, and then, as I consider it, the horizontal wing of your sort of back office business manager to the right, and then on the left they have the engineers as well as the superintendent and field crew. So structured very similar to all of us to some degree. On their power supply, they don't own generation facilities. They are largely PPAs. They're a WAPA full load customer with just 0.67% share of the output. They do have a Honey Lake Solar PPA, as well as some other resources in development, most specifically Nevada Geothermal. Like many of you, they do market purchases. They have this backup power, which is great, but not ideal from a cost standpoint because it's quite expensive compared to WAPA. On the scheduling side, WAPA does their scheduling today. They have this current transmission line that is currently under construction, and if and when it's done and interconnected, UAMPS will probably take over as the scheduling agent. From an RPS exceptions, they do utilize these cost caps to delay timely compliance. When we looked into their rate adjustments, like many of you, they've had increases over the last sort of 2-3 years. They've had a 5-cent total rate increase since December of 22nd. They do have their board approved these half-cent rate adjustments in 26, 27, and 28, something that the rating agencies certainly like. I have their numbers listed there for reference. When you look at the average residential bill that Mike Bell Consulting puts together on a yearly basis, I personally can't quite back into his numbers because I don't have his spreadsheets, but looking at Shasta, Biggs, Gridley, Ukiah's rates and comparing it to what Elmud has, they're going to fall in between there somewhere, so about in the middle. with their rates based on this 750 kilowatt hour month use. So about in the middle. From a stakeholder standpoint, as I mentioned before, their largest one is the Susanville Indian Rancheria. As I mentioned, mostly residential accounts of the tribe that's in that area. They do have this casino and travel center and various other facilities that's operated around that casino. There is the Banner Lassen Medical Center as well as the Lassen Community College. We looked into, they did have a recent bond deal back in October of 21. It was a $20 million deal to fund a $40 million project to build this skedaddle substation and 60 kV transmission line. And that's, as I mentioned before, that's going to more than likely change their balancing authority from the Cal ISO to NV Energy. And their goal is to try to, more reliable, cost-effective transmission service. When this bond deal came out, S&P initially rated it a triple B with a negative outlook. Now, triple B is still considered investment grade, but S&P, as many of you may have experienced, they are just really focused on the wildfire. If NCPA's bonds were still rated by S&P, I'm pretty sure we would have had a downgrade somewhere in there on the hydro bonds just due to their location. Unfortunately, Moody's and Fitch don't take sort of the same view as S&P. But that said, when you look not even 1 year after these bonds were issued, S&P came in and upgraded them to stable because their financials indicate that. But unfortunately, with the Palisades fire, they, as long with 6 others, did get downgraded to a negative outlook due to that fire. And so they just were, unfortunately, just one of those entities that were in the high wildfire zone and just got tagged for it. In regards to that substation and transmission line, the skedaddle is estimated to be early 2026, but NV Energy is going to be at the end of the year before that occurs. When we looked at their financials with their rate increases, we see operating revenues increasing consistently, which is what we would expect with rate increases. Operating expenses, again, less than operating revenues, which is key. You'll notice a little spike in 22, 23. That was the 1 year that we had the anomalies in the market, December, January, and February, when the natural gas costs blew up to like $55 an MMBTU. So that has stabilized, but from a net revenue standpoint, generating more, I should say, I'll call it an operating margin greater than their revenue expenses, which is great. On the reserve funds, I did notice how on earth did it jump from 11 to 24 million? That's just unusual. Digging through their financials, they had a restatement from 1 year to the next where they had a non-current asset of a construction fund that was restated to current, which is why there was such a big jump. I have a feeling some of that was tied to the bond deal because rating agencies love reserves because it then reflects your debt service coverage ratio. Their bond indenture, you need to be 1.25. They're significantly north of that. And when you factor in their reserves as the backstop, they're well above that threshold. And then the other thing that rating agencies love is your days cash on hand, which is their most recent one is a little over a year. Pretty solid from a financial standpoint based on their sized utility. When we compare, as we've modified our NCPA report card, this has really helped now, allowing us to evaluate potential people coming to entities wanting membership. So if Elmud, comparing their reserves to our members would fit right in between Truckee Donner and Healdsburg, about the same sized entities, so it looks good, looks reasonable. Cash on hand, solid, 370 days. I do imagine as they continue to build that substation, that will decline slightly, but still a pretty good number to have. And then lastly, their operating margin, again, even though we're all nonprofits, the end of the day, you're an enterprise fund. You've got to make more money than what is going out the door. It's just something I'd just like to monitor. Right now, they're retaining 25 cents of every dollar of revenue that is received. And so it's, again, showing that they can absorb any sort of potential volatility in the market. And again, what I consider very decent operating margin at this time. So we looked at some other considerations. Wildfire, they are in CPUC's Tier 2, which is the elevated risk, due to their location and just probably the sheer cost of it, because we experience this too, even though we're still able to get it, they're unable to secure liability wildfire coverage. And so in exchange for that, they've been very proactive, very much like NCPA on the vegetation management, maintenance. They've increased their budgets. They've got grant money to help those efforts. They're not in PERS pension, which is probably a good thing. Their district sponsors their own defined contribution plan. They do offer retiree medical. Their plan is 63% funded with a $2 million UAL, so not too bad. And then from a legal standpoint, there's no legal or environmental liabilities. They do have an eminent domain proceeding in litigation, and then no deficiencies with state or federal mandates. If you look, if they were to join, this is an estimate based on fiscal 26. This will change year to year, but for the most part, that's about the ballpark. 114,000, certainly not enough to cover an FTE, but some to offset some of your costs. You know, again, a smaller utility is not necessarily going to generate, you know, significant offsets here, but again, still a number that does, as we like to say, just sort of spread the cost a little bit more. A lot of the discussion with the UDs, these were a lot of things that came up. Any legal liability concerns with their wildfire zone. Again, LMUD's just asking to participate in the LNR program. It does require them to sign the agreement. And within that agreement is a lot of these sort of indemnification language, but as it really pertains to the agreement and those activities, even though I'm not a lawyer, I'd lead on Jane and the legal team. I struggle to see if they were to start a fire in their territory, how that liability claim could come through them to NCPA to you. I struggle to see it because if you think it exists and it exists for all of us, then if a fire starts in your territory, then the same could apply. But I just don't see it happening because, again, it's specific to their territory. And then another big question, because this is not uncommon, is does LNR have the capacity to absorb the work? This was talked about yesterday in the LNR meeting that, you know, just due to the overall benefit, I think Jane's team is indirectly helping them today. And it's just for the good of everybody, and we're not being compensated for it. I think they've also helped them get set up in the LCFS. You'll notice on today's agenda, which is, again, it's unrelated, and I don't want it to be a component of the decision-making, but there was a contract that was brought through, this communications and social media contract that will free up time that staff is doing today, what is essentially being outsourced, and it could be, from what I understand, absorbed the work that Elmud would ask by Jane's team, because it's really being somewhat done today. But I'll still lean on her to decide if there's capacity there at the end of the day. Another big one is, what value does LMUD bring? And that's tough for a small utility to step into this diverse group. I'd say for the big one is this transmission line that they're working on today could have some excess capacity in amount that we need to go back and determine, because that was asked, how much capacity is there, and can we bring this Nevada geothermal as an option to you? I can almost consider it a first right of refusal to this membership, similar to South Feather and Nevada Irrigation District, that you have an opportunity to tap into this. So again, something that might need some further exploration, but an opportunity that can exist. And this is another one too, is having more members in these rural areas I think as what was discussed yesterday as the possible poster child for wildfire discussion, could really help elevate LNR's attention in these manners. Another conversation that came up, some of our history with PG&E, it was recognized that Palo Alto, ponied up a significant share of the money to fight them. But at the end of the day, it was the testimony of our smaller members, Biggs and Gridley, that won the case. And Plumas. Okay, I wasn't here. I have no history of this. But for those that are aware, want to opine on it, please jump in. Other discussions, we're a JPA model. We're a family. We're here to help others like us. I think they had said it may hurt us if we say no because we have a utility who looks just like us. Here, this is a known fact. Adding another member does dilute the voting percentage. Does not impact the project votes. It would impact LNR's vote potentially. From a political alignment, they have been getting actively involved. NWPPA, more specifically, which indicates they are potentially aligned. When I say potential, I'm stating this without facts. I lean on Jane to sort of confirm this, but really points to our political direction. Oh, and the CMUA board. That's right. And then, and they've had some turnover here, and to my understanding, with the GM, will probably and could help with the stability. Nick Dominguez has been a longtime LMUD employee and has been, obviously up through the ranks and promoted to their GM. They have been getting actively involved because they feel sort of alone up there in that top northeast corner of California. But like we've said, getting involved with these associations, as well as attending our annual conference this year, and I don't know if anyone had a chance to meet them. So yesterday, when we presented all this, we asked for a motion, and so the LNR committee approved, recommending that the agency accept the application and fee for membership consideration. That doesn't mean that they're a member, it just means we're accepting their application and we're going to continue the vetting process. And so the next steps was an informational item today. We would ask if there's any questions or information requests that you please direct them to Randy and or myself so we can start formulating the responses or get the data. We plan to take their financials through the Finance Committee in February. Any sort of legal concerns or issues, Jane has a couple meetings in January and February. And then we plan on coming back at the February LNR meeting to discuss, have some more discussion on this, report out from the committees, and then hopefully reach a decision point. And it just depends on where we're at, whether we ask for a recommendation to approve or reject, or if we need more time to discuss. And that's, I think, all I had today for this item. Again, it's informational, no action, but you're more than welcome to ask if any questions or comments.
Any questions, comments for Monty? Any hands up? No questions for Monty? Okay. Thank you. Well, at this time, we will move into closed
We're
session.
going to
Would
move
you
into
take
closed
us-
session. Yeah, so I would ask everybody at the remote locations to please put signs on your door and make sure that you only have approved folks in the room. It includes, the voting member, and on the first items, 2 essential staff can also be in the either in the room or on the line. And so Carrie and I are going to take a look here. And we're going to start with the litigation matters. If, for those of you who know your essential staff for that, you can stay on or in the room.
So Rodney's on the phone.
Okay.
He's-
Yeah, Rodney could be your essential staff, right, Mike? Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay.
And then we have Bill, he's with Plumas.
Okay, yeah, that's
Kaylee is
fine.
the alternate commissioner.
For-
Jared's
yeah.
alternate. They're all alternate.
Everybody's,
commissioners,
okay.
except
Okay,
for- yeah.
okay, that's good. Okay, so we've got good, and then in the room, I think we're fine.
I think we're good.
Okay. All right, okay, so does anyone at the remote locations need additional time to get your signs on the door? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. No. Okay, that's
Okay.
great, okay.
I'm going to
Good.
stop the recording now. So what
Yeah,
time
so
are-
we're now gonna stop the recording at 11:27
Okay.
and 12:19. And at this time, NCPA's commission is coming out of closed session and going back into open session. Is everyone on the phone ready to go back into open session? Everyone signs off doors, everybody's clear?
Yeah, Santa Clara is good.
Okay,
Oh,
okay, great.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Item 30, Resolution 25-142.
Okay, so before you do that real quick, we have one reportable action from closed session, and that is that we provided direction to real property negotiators in response to item number 27 on the closed session agenda. That is all we have that is reportable action. Now you can move to item 30.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 30, Resolution 25-142, approval of the Fourth Amendment to the amended employment agreement for Randy S. Howard, General Manager. Brenna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to start with, Carrie, thank you. Background, appointment and service. Randy Howard has served as NCPA's General Manager since 2015, providing executive leadership across agency operations, legislative and regulatory engagement, project development, and member services. The current employment agreement includes annual successive one-year periods through January 31st, 2026, unless notice is provided by either party. And as you are all aware, Randy previously notified NCPA of his intent to retire. At the request of the executive committee, he agreed to defer retirement to support leadership continuity during the GM recruitment process. And to ensure uninterrupted operations and provide stability through the recruitment and onboarding of the next general manager, the executive committee asked Randy to remain in his role into spring 2026. Next slide, thank you. So some discussion and decision endpoints to maintain stability during executive transition, retain institutional knowledge until successor is recruited and onboarded, provides operational continuity across major initiatives and legislative regulatory work. And then the salary adjustment is not precedent setting. The employment contract major amendments transition to month contract beginning February 1st, 2026. Randy's agreement converts to a month-to-month extension. It allows maximum flexibility while maintaining organizational stability during the transition. And then agency equipment upon separation from employment, the general manager shall be permitted to retain the agency-issued cellular phone and laptop identified as equipment. And then the salary adjustment, the executive committee has approved a 12% recognition and retention increase effective the first pay period in 2026. The increase is pension eligible, fully compliant with PEPRA caps, and limited solely to the extension period, i.e. it is not precedent setting for future executive contracts. It also recognizes Randy's continued leadership and the value of his staying through the transition. For the FY 2026 budget, the cost associated with the general manager's compensation change is covered within the current fiscal year budget. No budget augmentation is required. And then because Randy is a PEPRA member and is already capped at the current limit. And there's recommendations. The EC recommends a month-to-month contract extension, approve the amendment allowing the general manager upon separation to retain the agency-issued cellular phone and laptop, and it also includes a recognition and retention salary adjustment appropriate for the short-term extension. And so our request today is for approval and recommendation for the commission approval of the Fourth Amendment to the amended employment agreement for Randy S. Howard, authorize the chair of the commission to execute the Fourth Amendment to the amended employment agreement for Randy S. Howard, and authorize the chair of the commission to adjust the annual salary effective as of the first pay period in 2026. And if you have any questions.
Any questions for Brenna? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Healdsburg moves.
Grandfather contract.
Okay, we have a motion from Hillsburg. Do we have a second?
Santa Clara seconds.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Okay, taking a roll call vote. Alameda,
Yes.
Bart,
Yes.
Biggs,
Yes.
Ridley,
Yes.
Healdsburg,
Yes.
Yes.
Lodi is absent. Lompoc,
Yes.
Palo Alto,
Yes.
Port of Oakland,
Yes.
Reading,
Yes.
Roseville,
Yes.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Shasta Lake,
Yes.
Truckee Donner,
Yes.
Ukiah is absent, and Plumas.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 31, Resolution 25-143. Brenda?
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chair, and I'll just wait. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so Janie Luckhart was appointed NCPA's in-house general counsel on May 1st, 2017, and has served as the agency's general counsel for more than 8 years. Since her initial appointment, the commission has approved 8 amendments to her employment agreement, reflecting performance, evolving organizational needs, and market alignment. The employment agreement requires the executive committee to conduct an annual performance evaluation, review compensation and benefits, and recommend contract amendments and performance goals to the commission. Over multiple meetings, the executive committee reviewed Jane's FY 2025 goals and accomplishments, assessed performance outcomes, and analyzed market data and internal equity to ensure alignment with NCPA's compensation philosophy. The executive committee completed full annual performance evaluation. General counsel performance met or exceeded expectations across agency priorities. There's a request for a reallocation to grade 34, which aligns the classification with peer executive positions, maintains NCPA's competitive market position for specialized legal leadership, and ensures continuity across major regulatory compliance and litigation responsibilities. So the employment contract major amendments, a 6% merit cost of living increase effective the first pay period in 2026 based on the Executive Committee's FY 2025 performance evaluation. Reclassification to salary grade 34 has no fiscal impact. And this update aligns the classification with, again, comparable executive roles and ensures market competitive positioning. So again, for fiscal impact, FY 2026 budget, the cost associated with the general counsel's compensation change is covered within the current fiscal year budget. No budget augmentation is required, and Jane is a PEPR member and is already capped at current limit. Next slide. So recommendation is to approve the 9th Amendment to the General Counsel Employment Agreement, approve the General Counsel's 2026 performance goals, approve merit adjustment recommended by the EC, reassign the General Counsel classification to salary grade 34, and adopt the administrative wage schedule effective 12/28/2025, reflecting the updated grade. And with that approval and recommendation for commission approval of the 9th Amendment to the employment agreement for Janie Luckhart, authorize the chair of the commission to execute the 9th Amendment to the employment agreement, authorize the chair of the commission to adjust the annual salary effective as of the first pay period in 2026, and approve the General Counsel's performance goals for 2026. With that, if you have any questions.
Any questions for Brenna? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion from Palo Alto.
Do I have a
Santa
second?
Clara seconds.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Okay, roll call vote. Alameda,
Yes.
Bart, Biggs,
Yes.
Ridley, Healdsburg,
Yes.
Lodi is absent. Lompoc,
Yes.
Palo Alto,
Yes.
Port of Oakland,
Yes.
Reading,
Yes.
Roseville,
Yes.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Shasta Lake,
Yes.
Truckee Donner,
Yes.
Ukiah is absent, and Plumas.
Yes.
Okay, do I still have Yulia on the phone? Bart? Okay, maybe she stepped away. Okay, motion passes. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. So under new business, I'd just like to take a moment to thank all NCPA staff, commissioners, member staff for a great 2025. Look forward to 2026. I hope you all have a safe and happy holiday, and look forward to seeing you soon or next year. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yep,
I like that.
Yeah.
there's a lot on the agenda today.
Did awesome.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
We didn't get to put all those big projects that she just now checked off in her evaluation.
That's right.
Thank you, Brandon. I'll come say bye before I leave. Thank you.
It's like an echo.
There's a lot on the agenda today.
Did awesome.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
We didn't get to put all those big projects that she just now checked off in her evaluation.
That's right.
Thank you, Brandon. I'll come say bye before I leave. Thank you.
It's like an echo.